Today, I wanted to focus on two things rich South Africans spend their money on. So, this will be very important for everyone to understand why rich people get even more rich, while the affluent, the middle class, and lower class aren't getting to their level. Their spending pattern generally tells us what is the main reason they remain rich, while the rest of the mess is still staying behind, right? So let us see what is happening in South Africa. So we are told that South African across all income segment spend over 70% of their disposable income on groceries, retail, traveling, eating out, as well as fuel, right? However, lower income South African and high income individual have significantly different priorities, right? And then we are told groceries are the primary spending item for the mass market and the mass affluent and everyday affluent individual. So we are told that three group, which is mass market, mass affluent, and everyday affluent individuals, we spend most of our money on groceries. In comparison, high income individuals dedicate a large share of their spending toward the retail as well as traveling, right? So one will not understand what is different between groceries as well as the retail, right? So if we're looking at groceries, it basically you making purchase of food or any household items, right? It could be you buying food to go eat at home or you buying detergents and other household items, right? So when you buy that, you are buying for the purpose of consuming it. And then after that, it will be the end of that product. However, when we look on the other side, we are told that the high income individual, they dedicate large share of spending toward the retail as well as traveling. So we're going to focus on retail because we want to differentiate it from grocery. So retail on other side, it when we make purchase for either resale or for durable consumption. So let us focus on resale. So if the wealthy individual go buy the bicycle to resell at a profit, they are going to be making more money, which is why you find out that they keep on making more money because they are buying for business purpose while we are buying for consumption. So that is why then you see that there is a massive difference between the low income or affluent people when we compare to the higher income individual. And then we're just gonna look at the definition that I have. So what it says. So it said the difference between the retail and groceries is that the retail is the sale of goods directly to the consumer, encompassing the storefront, mail order, website, etc. And the corporate mechanism, branding, advertisement, etc. that support them, which are involved in the business of selling and point of sales marketing, retailing of goods, and public groceries, right? So while grocery is the retail food stuff and other household supplies. So generally, rich people are making money because they buy to sell to other people and make profit, right? While the other parts, which is mass affluent, everyday affluent, and individual, they buy product for final consumption. And then once you are done looking at this, I want us to look at the graphs, which shows the breakdown in terms of different mass, which is your mass affluent, everyday affluent, and high net worth. So if we're looking at the South Africa as a whole, we can all see that we spend the majority of the money on retail, groceries, and other item, and little bit of money on travel as well as fuel, right? And eating obviously out and dining. And then once we're done at looking at South Africa as a whole, let us look at the four segment that we're analyzing. If we're looking at the four segment, we can see high net worth. They're spending more money on retail, right? Then they also spending money on travel. It's bigger compared to other three, which is mass affluent, and everyday. However, when you're looking at other, they're spending almost the same as everyday affluent, but little compared to mass affluent. And when we're looking at the grocery at the top, they're spending less compared to other three segment. And you're looking at fuel, they're also spending less compared to the other three mass. So when you think of it, they know that if they spend more money on groceries, that means that they're not making profit out of grocery. They're just eating and then it'll be the end of it. Also, on fuel, they rather spend more time in the office or in their homes analyzing the graphs for investment, for business, and all other sorts of things that will help them to generate more money. While on the other side, when you're looking at the other three segment, they spend more money on grocery as well as fuel because they spend more time on the road. They're trying to go meet the friends, which spends more money while they are saving as high net worth. And then when we're done looking at the segment, let us go down and see the share of total spend per category. So what happens when this analysis was done, they selected 7 cities. So in these 7 cities, we can see that we have big city, which is Cape Town, Durban, Johannesburg, as well as Pretoria. And we have your little small cities, which is Bloemfontein, East London, and Gqeberha, right? And then when we try to analyze the share of total spend per category, what you can see if you're looking at the top four, which is like little big city in South Africa, being your Cape Town, Durban, Johannesburg, and Pretoria, you can see they spend a lot of money on retail, right? Then followed by they're also spending money on other as well as groceries. But if you compare the two parts that we spoke about, which is retail and travel, where the biggest spend is done by the high net worth individual, that's where you see this bigger city, that where they spend a lot of money on, simply because they are rich. And then we know that most rich people are sitting in those cities. Not to say in Bloemfontein, Eastern Cape, and Gqeberha, we don't have wealthy people or high net worth, but most high net worth people or individuals, they normally sit in Cape Town, Durban, Johannesburg, or Pretoria, which is why we find that the retail size of spending is a little bit higher. So that generally summarize how do we end up having wealthy people and also people that are middle income or affluent staying there and not moving. So generally our spending determine where we get in life, how far we get with our life. So this is why I was like, this article is the burst to define how we differ in terms of spending and how to become wealthy if you are not. So generally, look at your spending, adjust your spending, and you'll get wherever you want in life. Thank you so much for listening to this video. Bye.